Leadership isn't just changing, it's evolving in ways we're only just beginning to imagine. And women, we're not playing this game anymore. We're the ones reshaping the entire field, building models, movements, and businesses that serve more than just a few. On the She Leads podcast, you'll hear real conversations with women who've broken through all kinds of barriers: revenue, identity, borders, and expectations. There's no sugarcoating here, just the truth, told by those who are living it. I'm Adrienne Garland, entrepreneur, strategist, educator, and creator of live experiences, gathering women leaders together for over a decade. And this is the She Leads podcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the She Leads podcast. I'd like to kick off today's episode with a simple request. If you haven't done so already, before you listen into this episode, please pause and take just 2 minutes to go over and give the show a 5-star rating and review. It's so important to share the journeys, wisdom, and lessons of the women entrepreneurs and leaders that we feature here on the She Leads podcast. And the best way to do that is to rate, review, and share this show with anyone who's interested in seeing more women leaders in this world. Thank you so much for helping to share our incredible show with more people. Now, on to my next guest. You are all in for a treat. Her name is Linda Hunt, and she's the founder of Some Solutions and author of The Money Conversation. Linda is known as the Money Clarity Catalyst because she helps service-based entrepreneurs like me rebuild their pricing, systems, and client communication strategically. She helps women build wealth through alignment, structure, and intention without stress. Welcome to the She Leads podcast, Linda.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. We were having a great conversation in the green room, and I'm super excited to dive into the episode here.
I am so excited too. And as you were talking, I was like, should I hit record? Because everything that you're saying is such great stuff. So I want to talk about it all today here. So let's get into it. Before we start, I would actually love to have you share your origin story, because this is sort of where the work that you do came from. So take us back. Yes.
Yeah, correct. You are right on the money. So I am a corporate dropout. I was in the corporate world and unhappy, and I was trapped. So quickly, I was traveling 95% of the time and got to know my limo driver well, who owned his own small business. And I found myself consulting from the back seat, and I really loved it. I loved being able to help entrepreneurs, and it fed my soul. So I had if anyone's read The E-Myth Revisited, it's a fantastic book. I had what Michael Gerber talks about, an entrepreneurial seizure, and I left. So
Wow.
the first mistake that I made though, Adrienne, and I'm going to start with the mistakes, right, is I started an outsourced remote accounting services business, because that's what I thought I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what I was doing. I was actually helping with operations. And yes, I was doing the accounting, but I was selling the wrong services. So I had a misalignment with who I was and the value that I was providing. And what was so fascinating to me is, and I'm not going to preface this saying I do love men, but accounting back then, was very male dominated. And here I am in accounting, and they kept calling me a bookkeeper. And I had so much more experience, right? I had an MBA. I was in middle level manager in corporate. And, here I am being treated like a bookkeeper, and I started to believe it.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's one mistake. Then the second mistake I made is that I was underpricing myself because of the way I saw myself.
Yeah.
Right. So I was undervaluing my services. And that led to me not being able to pay my bills. Right. I was not bringing enough money in to my business, and it was completely stressed out. Right. So then we go into this cycle of, and I was single. Right. I was single at the time, responsible for myself. And You're nervous. You're always stressed. You're under nervous system duress. And what I recognized was I had to fix this. And I'm not a salesperson.
Yeah.
And I think most service providers were not. I think our service is our heart, it's our soul, it's our passion, right?
Yeah.
And it's very hard to put a value to that. Uh, so I had to come up with a way, right, to get business that felt good to me. So I stumbled upon create offering a baseline service, right? An evaluation that allowed a client to get a taste of me, right? To
Mm,
experience what it would be like to work with me. And then from that evaluation, I was able to quote the next set of services.
mm.
And I found that business, I started getting the business. So I started getting confidence, right?
Yes.
And then the next phase, I naturally led to the next phase of services. So I'm not going to tell you I wasn't uncomfortable. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared stating my rate at that time. But it started to work because I had a process that I was sticking to and following. And
Mm,
that is the origin story of how I show up for other service providers today. I
I love
help
it.
them create that structure, create that container so that they too can feel confident in their business.
I love it. This is so important for women that are sort of starting out to hear because I think so many of us, we come out of the corporate environment because that's what we were trained to do and trained to want to move into. It's sort of like that we were educated to go work in corporate and put our heads down and work really hard and be rewarded for it and love it and retire. And none of that happened for any of us.
That's
Right?
correct. Absolutely correct. And the other thing I think a lot of women did in corporate is we did a lot of invisible work
Yes.
that wasn't seen, wasn't rewarded,
Hmm.
was not rewarded. And yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I left.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't know enough to call it that at the time,
Right.
right? But here's the other thing that translates into our business. So how we operated in corporate
Yeah.
is how we operate in our business. So it's
Hmm.
super important as a woman entrepreneur to create systems in your business so that everything doesn't default to you because we have a lot of fractional teams
Yes.
and fractional teams are fantastic. But what I'm finding with my clients is a lot of the work is defaulting back to the person who cares the most, which is you, the owner.
Yep.
And that is because we need to ask a crucial question. And that crucial question is, how do I not live here? What
Yeah.
process can I create so I'm not living here? You know, it, and what I mean by here is in that process, because if it's administrative, hire an executive assistant to support you, but give them the process that allows you not to live there.
Yeah, this is so good. You mentioned the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, and I, talk about this all the time. I teach entrepreneurship at NYU and at Rice
Oh,
University, but at NYU, one of the required readings is the E-Myth
is
Revisited.
that book?
Yes,
Yes,
because it's absolutely classic. And
it is.
yeah, and even what you're talking about with building systems that allow you to work on the business instead of in the
Correct.
business is part
Correct.
of that principle. And it's so important because when women are in corporate, when we leave, we often, assess our skill set and say, what can we launch immediately that we are experts in? And oftentimes it's services, accounting services, HR
Yeah.
services, marketing services, et
Yes.
cetera. And we get trapped because we launch the business. We are the expert. We don't launch the
Yeah.
business and then hire 5 people to execute the work. We execute the work. We
Right.
exhaust ourselves, burn ourselves
Yes.
out, feel like
Yes.
crap about ourselves. Can you tell I'm talking about me? Um, And yeah, and then you don't know what to do because with a burnt out brain, you are not
Right.
able to make these
Right.
strategic decisions. And
You're 100%.
the
100%.
yeah, and so many women, we can this podcast has also sort of been going through the same sort of transition where,
Mhm.
you know, we're looking at women who have been able to put these systems into place, work on their business, and get to that $1 million mark and beyond. So many of us who are listening in, we're on this journey. And so there's a part where we launch and then we put our systems in place, and it almost requires a shift in identity from corporate to entrepreneur, and then
Yes.
another shift in identity when we get to that $1 million mark. Can
Yeah.
you talk about what that looks like for service-based
Sure.
businesses?
Sure. So one of the things, and sometimes it happens even before a million, right?
Ye
Because as we're earning more, or in our revenue, like we are earning, we're not talking about bottom line, we're talking about top line, but we are earning more. And the systems that you started your business with, they need to go through evolution,
Yeah.
right? With you. So systems are dynamic. So I want everyone to kind of know that. All right.
Yes.
So it's not like it's one and done. It's the core will stay with you. You're just going to refine as you grow and elevate. And that typically happens in stages. Think of like steps. Okay. So that's one piece of it. Other piece of it is seeing ourselves, right? Holding ourselves. I don't, I'm trying to say holding ourselves, but I'm not quite sure that's exactly right. But so we have to train, not train, yeah, support our nervous system to
Yeah.
say, I am a $1 million business owner,
Mm.
right? It's like, it is because if we don't think we're worthy, right? And this comes back to self worth for women, and especially for service providers. We tend to be people pleasers. We
Yes.
tend to over deliver in our services, right?
Mhm.
So I talk about where the 3 points where our business breaks, right? So our business can break in the conversation, right? So when we're talking to someone, say about our rates, um, I might say to you, gee, Adrienne, that the services that we're going to be doing for you, that's going to be $5,000. And you hesitate.
Yeah.
Now, what's happening is because I'm coming to that conversation with my money story, I'm interpreting that as, oh my gosh, she's not going to go with me. And then fill the silence, right? I either add something to, the product or service, or I say to you, but I can do it for you for 4,000, right?
Oh
It's
my
like,
gosh.
as women, we just said that's a break in your business because you're not following your process. The second place, and it comes back to self-worth. It
Mhm.
comes back to seeing ourselves as these powerful business owners. The second place it breaks is inside the work, right? So, and you talked about this. It's like, say someone's not paying us, or we have a high touch client and they're very, very demanding. And what we originally uh, scoped out the services to be, we're doing 10 times more than that and we're
Mm.
not being paid for it. That is how the second time it breaks, because that is where the burnout happens.
Yeah.
And I know this because, please know, everyone listening, I've done this. I've lived this. And it's not fun. It's not a good
No.
place to be. And you have to really set up some really strong boundaries. I always say, if you want to meet yourself, become an entrepreneur.
Yes.
I'm an entrepreneur.
That's a
And
good
then the
one.
third place, yeah, the third place that our business breaks is when we don't have a consistent process that we are following, right? So, as service providers, I don't care what kind of service you have, 80% of it is repeatable. 80% of it you are doing across all of your clients.
Mm.
And what you want to do is write down those steps, broad strokes, right? And then write down how you need to deliver that in a quality way consistently. And
Yeah.
then you price to that. Okay. And then, I mean, there's other components, right? Because we want to make sure that we're pricing to our capacity, our true capacity,
Yeah.
and a lot of things. And this is how I work with. So yes, I am a numbers person, but what I'm really doing is I call myself a financial architect, and a money clarity catalyst, because I am helping women look at these three things and say, how do we do this differently to support and hold up the business owner, hold you up?
Yeah.
Because that is what I did that's what I redesigned for myself. And again, I didn't realize I was doing it until I started talking to other people. They're like, how are you doing that? And I'm like, oh, let me share with you. And then
Mm.
their business would change.
Oh,
So
so good.
so I went through a migration and evolution myself where, yeah, I was providing accounting services, but now I really go in and I can see where the business is draining your power,
Mm.
and I call it leaks.
Yeah, it's leaks, right? It's energy leaks, it's
Yes.
emotional leaks. And we were talking about this a little bit before as well. I think all of us can we can all understand the feeling of what it's like to not feel like I don't know what the right word is because some of these words I don't like, and that's why I'm searching for them, but to, almost feel less than, okay? And like you talked about with when you say this is what my pricing is and that uncomfortable moment of silence that we feel and then we diminish ourselves.
Mhm.
I've absolutely 100% done this. And I do find, I'll say maybe something controversial. I do find that when working with other women that it's actually real that they say that's too much or I can't afford that. And it's so unfortunate. I definitely want to hear your thoughts about it. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate. At the same time, I also think that it's systemic because if these,
Yes.
women business owners that you're trying to service are in the same, play sandbox, all of us are getting less, less, less. So it's actually true that they don't have that budget.
Yes.
And so it forces you to maybe work with others that you don't necessarily want to be working with because they have the budget. So
They but
yeah, it creates this
yeah,
weird
you're right.
dynamic.
Yeah, no, you're right. So I think there's two paths on that question. So let's go to the first path first, where when someone says, that's too expensive, I don't have the money for that. I'm going to blow up that myth and say, we always find the money. If we want to buy something, we find the money, right? Because I will tell you that I shared earlier, like I was having trouble paying my bills, but yet I always got my hair done,
Yeah,
always,
right.
right? I like every month because I'm of Italian descent and I went gray very, very young. Have been coloring my hair for years, and I always found that money. Oh, it
Mm,
was like every 6 weeks that money fight. So I'm going to blow up that myth, ladies,
mm,
that we find the money. We will always find the money for what we value. Now, the other thing is that is really scared. Like what's happening is their nervous system is saying, "Oh my gosh," and this is the underlying belief. I can't invest in myself. That's the belief happening there. So what I would recommend when someone says that is to tell me more about that.
mm,
Because what's happening is there's not clarity, right? There's not clarity and sometimes it truly is budget. So instead of walking away, right? And this is where we have to be clear on our services. Maybe you do a scaled down version. Maybe there's a smaller way you can help that person because they might need A through Z, but what's the crucial thing they need? Do they only need A? So maybe you start there, right?
mhm.
So there could be a way to have the conversation and talk it through. Um, I think as high achieving women, we want everything. Like I know for me, I want A to Z and I want it fixed tomorrow. I've learned that it's not about being ready, right? It's about what do I need right now, right?
Yep.
So, and it's so funny. I just before this podcast, I'm doing some planning, and I made a strategic decision for my business that the direction we're going to go into, and something came across my inbox this morning that could have distracted me,
Mhm.
and it's something that will feed that future direction. But today, it is not important. So I've learned like I've made a note of it and I've put it aside. And
Mm,
as women, we do need to, because it's a shiny bauble syndrome. We can go in that direction. But having said that, I think the core underlying thing here that I want everyone to hear is that you have to be really clear in how you deliver your services. And what I mean by that is how like I'll share with you like our accounting services.
sure.
I it's very simple. Like we don't allow our clients to touch their accounting file. Like, and oftentimes, sometimes they'd be like, well, we want to do this part. And then what was happening is, and then we would say, so say they're in there recording transactions and paying bills. And then we would go in and we would reconcile everything and give them their monthly reports. What was happening is they were doing all the foundational work incorrectly. Okay.
Wow.
And then
Yeah.
we'd have to clean it up. So this is early on in my business. So I wasn't getting paid to clean it up. They thought they were doing it right. It wasn't my job to train them. So there was all of this misalignment happening, right?
Hmm.
What I finally decided is, okay, I'm not going to work with anyone who wants to touch their own accounting file, right? Who
Hmm.
wants to be in their accounting file because they don't want to pay me to clean it up and they don't want to pay for the full service. So I had to define how I wanted to deliver, how I wanted to deliver my service and how I could do that with the quality, the level of quality I wanted to provide. And I had to hold that standard. So I had a lot of clients at that time who were touching their accounting file. And yes, there was a transition period where I went down because I clients were leaving because I made that rule. Clients were leaving, but I will tell you, newer and aligned clients came in.
Mm,
So to your point, Adrian, like you might be working with people who aren't ideal, but
yeah.
I want you to identify why, right? Why are they not ideal? And then what is it about your service? So, and then look at your service and say, how do I deliver this? How do I deliver quality? But I really want to work with this group of women, business owners. How do I help them? So maybe it's a scaled down version.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a DIY program. Maybe it's something it's different. So it's just stepping back and maybe it's a group call, right? Maybe it's a DIY training and a group call. I don't know. I don't know
Sure.
the answer,
Yeah.
but there are different ways to do it, but just center in, start with your what do we want to call it? Your biggest and best plan, right? Like here's everything from A to Z.
Your vivid vision.
Yes, I love that. Here's my service. And then you can pull out of that the critical pieces that allow you to deliver quality service.
Yeah.
And you can create offerings from that.
Hey, everyone. So, for years, I've been working with Dr. Kent and sending people in my network his way. He does so much impact work. What do I mean by that? Well, he helps people create books and podcasts and things like that. He even helps with this podcast behind the scenes. Dr. Kent is my thought partner. Anyone listening knows that we all need to do what we can to get our thoughts, opinions, and voices out into the world, and how important it is for women to invest in other women and for women to hire other women. I am all about that, and you all know that. But in this case, I think Dr. Kent is an exception. He's doing something really different via this new program that he's launched called the Genius Discovery Program. So he wants to work with people like me and like you who are impact driven. Dr. Kent has an intensive program that goes for a month. He also has a 3-month program where he figures out where you're headed with your brand, your business, your speaking, and your signature story as a thought leader. I've known Dr. Kent for a long time. So believe me when I say that he has a ton of experience working with people that are looking to make an impact but might not know exactly how to approach that. So if you're interested in talking to him, you can go directly to talktokent.com, or you can send me a DM on Instagram at She Leads Media, or just shoot me an email over at hello@sheleadsmedia.com. I love that. And I think that it all goes back to how we are trained because we have we layer in emotion into business, which is a good thing, but it can be a negative thing. So we as people pleasers, service providers, we want to make the customer happy. And, you hear messaging, the customer is always right. If you service the
Yes,
customer and do it, they'll be a customer for life. So there's a balance that has to be struck there. But I
correct.
do think that we get a little too far off and we go overboard, we over deliver,
Yes,
and sometimes that works to our advantage, but oftentimes it leaves us
that's true.
bitter because we are not
Yes.
getting paid our value. And like you said, you started to believe that you were and there's nothing wrong with being a bookkeeper, but you
No,
started
no.
to believe that you were just a bookkeeper when you had so much more to offer. I think so many people listening
Yes.
in can relate to that.
Yes. And the key there was I was offering more. And that's what and you just spoke to that so eloquently. Again, Adrian, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's about going back to our services, right? If we have structure around our service delivery,
Yeah.
we will not over deliver because we will be this process will support us.
Right.
You will be able to identify the scope creep. You will be able to identify when something's not included and then having the language to go back, right? So I talk about this in my book, The Money Conversation.
Yeah.
You will be able to go back and say to the client, we would love to be able to help you with that. And here's the fee associated. Now, is every single thing you're going to go back and charge? Absolutely not. There might be something that is, easy. And especially in our accounting services, like we build in, like I know clients are going to ask for an analysis of, I don't know, say travel or mileage or whatever it is. We build it into that's part of our quality service. It's easy. We set up the account. So, and then we set the process up to make sure that we can produce that report by a click of a button.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. It's about
The system.
structuring the process to support it, to support the business. And yes, some people say to me, but Linda, I don't know how to do that. And I'm like, you know your business. I know how to think and structure. Let's meld our minds together.
Yeah, it's peanut butter
Let's
and
come up with a
chocolate.
process together. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's peanut butter
My
and jelly.
favorite. That's my favorite.
I love this. I also think that one of the messages that I'm hearing in between all of this too is like when it comes to pricing and pricing we know is an art and a science, and it's really what the value that
Mhm,
your customer perceives is the price that they'll pay. But I think that, as you're sort of transitioning through, you maybe start out as solopreneur.
mhm,
Maybe you have a virtual assistant or an assistant from the get-go, which is great.
mhm,
I want to just kind of ask you, we know that if you take a look at like how much you need to live and operate your business and maybe with one other person, that's not enough. It's never enough. So
no,
how does one think about how to price
right.
their services so that it's not wildly, different than the market, but also that there's
Yes,
room and space, like you were saying before, to
yes,
hold the ability
yes,
to hire more people to help you so that
yes.
you're not in the business all the time.
Great question. That's a fantastic question. And I actually have a free diagnostic on my website. It is called the perfect pricing formula. And the reason why I call it that is because it helps you calculate your minimum aligned price.
Mm,
And the minimum aligned price is the floor. Okay.
yes,
So, and what I mean by that, it is what you need to charge to sustain your business. And then, yes, um, then we add some, the art factor, right? But
sure.
this is so what you want to do is and the training and the download will walk you through how to do this. It is the floor. If you're charging below that, you're actually paying your clients to work for them. But oftentimes what I find is most people are charging they're charging what they need, but just what they need,
Mm,
right? And it's not getting them to the next level.
right.
So awareness is key. So go and calculate that number, right? And then Um, the next step is then designing the business, right? To help you extrapolate to that next session, that next level, so to
Mhm.
speak. So there's a couple ways. I mean, I work with clients all the time to do stuff like that, but I also have a pricing diagnostic coming out that will show you where the pricing, what to focus on, what to focus on. So
This is so important. I think as women do transition from solopreneur to bringing other people into the business and then trying to figure out, how do I adjust my pricing when I've been
yeah,
out in the market at a certain level. So,
correct.
how can somebody
Yeah.
adjust that price? What does that feel like from the
So
let me just finish
yeah.
my
So
question. Sorry.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. Brain's going. It's like I want to answer.
It's all good. So, um, as the entrepreneur, transitioning from being a solo entrepreneur into having more people in the business, and their pricing is at a certain level. How do they communicate to the market not only outwardly, but also how do they sort of embrace that? Because you talk about not being stressed about things, being able to hold this. So, what is that
yeah.
almost like two-step process to increase your
So
prices?
yeah, so really broad strokes though, because it is unique to everybody. But one of the things is say you have a team, and it depends on the kind of service that you have, right? You're not just price. So this is where package pricing comes into place, right?
Mm.
It's like value based packages. It's one of the things that I recommend. It's we don't want to charge by the hour, but you start with that. So the one of the core elements of any packaging is you're going to start with true capacity, and you're going to start with what do you need to be charging as at a minimum. Okay. So that's a component of it. And then typically, I mean, you know, yes, you want to know what the market's doing, but I'm going to go back to how do you deliver your services? So,
Mhm.
how are you delivering your services? It's like, so you need to, so there's a, for service providers, there is a time element.
Yeah.
Okay. And you want to structure that to support how you deliver services. So, are you in HR? Is that your,
No, no.
you mentioned HR businesses before. I was gonna use that as an example. But basically, if you're providing, so say you're
Marketing services.
providing services for them and you're offering a package.
Mhm.
Okay. So, in very broad strokes, how I would design something like that is, let's say the offering is we're going to do a handbook. Okay. So, you're going to do a handbook for someone. Well, as an HR provider, and I'm making this up, that you can customize a handbook for someone in 4 to 6 hours. Okay. So, you're going to develop your package based on, an hourly rate, right, for 4 to 6 hours. And then you're going to add a factor on top of that, right, which then adds the intrinsic value, right? And here's the thing, it may take you 4 to 6 hours, but it might take someone else 10 to 12
Right.
because you have the expertise. So let's just say those 4 to 6 hours, you charge, for simplicity's sake, $600 an hour. So it's $600. I would then maybe, as a simple rule of thumb, 1.5 times, 2.5 times. And then that is the cost for the, or the price for so let's just say it's $3,000. $3,000 for a handbook. And then what you want to do is when you're going back to the client, okay, so I heard you say that the client will, they have to perceive the value, right?
Mhm.
And the client's always right. But I'm gonna, the clients do not want to buy hours. They want to buy a transformation and they want to buy a result. So if the pain point is they really need this handbook and they need it implemented into their organization, and you're solving that problem for them, and then you clarify that for $3,000, you will get this handbook and the templates, or I'm going to walk through your leadership team on how to implement this for $3,000, you've just solved their pain point. So
Right.
so when we talk about our pricing, we want to talk about the transformation,
Right.
the result, right? Because I can guarantee you they will not question because they understand, they have clarity around what they're receiving, and that is what they are buying. Okay. Now, there's also an opportunity there that that leadership team might need ongoing support. So you could then say, here's level A, right? With just the initial, the basic. And then you could say, but here's level B that includes 6 months of support.
Right.
And then you price that, right? So it's thinking about it modular.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Does that answer your question?
yeah. So I think what I'm trying to get at here is not so much, how are you pricing your services now, but as one transitions from
Yeah.
like a solo
So
biz.
yeah. So okay. So you're trying to get to like, how do you get that extra cash in your business? Is that's so
Yeah,
that you can
yes.
hire a team and expand,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So there's a couple of things to do, right? It really depends on what you're bringing on, right? Are you saying you want? Are we coming at it from the angle of I want to bring on another person who can provide services?
Yes.
Okay. So if you want to, so when I did this in my accounting firm, right? You already want to price your services. You already want to create your package, right? As though someone else will be doing the work.
That's
You don't,
key. Yes.
yes. Yeah. So basically, I created a package that included, let's say, the accounting, the bookkeeping level, right? And then I included the month end close. And then the package was like, monthly accounting support services, whatever. But it was always designed in a way that I could delegate a piece of it. Okay. Now, and I think you're asking this question. It's like, I didn't design the package based on what I would be paying. Well, I did design the package. Like you have to think about it. Um, if I hire someone to do this piece of it, so let's just say for simplicity's sake, my monthly fee was $2,000 a month. And then in order to have a bookkeeper, right, support me so that I could get more business, bring in more business and do higher level work, it's so instead of $2,000 being available for me and the business, it's going to be 1,500, right? And then let's just say after that, $500 goes towards business expenses. And then I have $1,000 to pay myself. You kind of have to look at your packages and how you're pricing them as to currently pricing them as to where the money gets allocated in percentages, right? Like,
Mhm.
so let's just say 40% of it's going to go to labor for hiring somebody. Um, let's just say, another 30% goes to covering expenses, 30% goes to maybe, you know, a growth fund. And then the rest of that goes to say paying yourself. So then it becomes a numbers game. How many clients, like if I do this right now and I hire somebody, what am I gonna where how much money do I have? How many more new clients do I need to bring in?
Mhm.
So then it becomes the chicken before the cart before the horse before the cart. Some people will go ahead and just hire and
Mhm.
then get the business, right? Other people will want to get the business and then they're working all the time and then they bring somebody on. I prefer the first
Mhm.
because you need to have the time to train that person. Um, and get them on board so that they're able to operate effectively, right? They're able to operate effectively and you're not holding their hand. So I would say to you that if, it is a planning thing, but you also can start to line up 2 or 3 clients. So how I used to do it is I would hire part-time. I would
Mhm.
hire part-time and then I would have 2 new clients. I would try to have 2 new clients coming in when I hired that person, and then that person would start on the 2 new clients.
Right.
And then as I had confidence in that person and as they grew in their role, I then delegated more and then the flow started to work, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
it does. And I think that what you're talking about now, really pricing your services from the get-go as if you have a team is the move. And I think that's maybe where sometimes women go awry is that they launch the business by themselves, maybe
Yes.
hiring a virtual
Yes.
assistant and not thinking in a team way. It's because
Correct.
we are, we're conditioned to find the
Yeah.
coupon, save the money, bootstrap.
Yes.
And you
Yes.
can bootstrap with other employees, and I think that's the difference maker sometimes between the way that men start businesses and the way that women start businesses. Men just automatically assume that they are gonna be a growing business, and they staff up, and then they almost price accordingly because they have to.
They have to.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
actually a great way to think. It's just that we are
Yeah.
super cautious and we don't want to fail. So we keep ourselves small, unfortunately.
Yes. Yes. But so again, that minimum aligned price and that perfect pricing formula, that formula is so simple, but that formula will allow you to add team members, right?
Yeah.
Because there's the personal component and then there's the business expense component, right? So there's the personal desired salary, the business expenses, right? Because I go back to that formula every time I'm going to up level, right? Like I'm going to say I'm going to add something new.
Yes.
Um and and there's two ways to add people on, but if I'm adding on a new, say, offering, something that's different, I'm going to go back to that minimum line form, that minimum line price, and I'm going to say, okay, I need to expand, right? My team, because I need, I don't know, I need a pricing coach. That's what I need. So I would go back to my minimum line price, add that into my business expenses. And then it's like, oh, okay. So across the board, this is what our new package rate's gonna be, or this is our new minimum aligned price.
Yeah.
So you get a new floor. So that
Mm.
formula grows with you if
Mm.
just have to you think about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. So I think that this is something that all of us need to do is go to the perfect pricing formula and calculator on your website
Yeah.
and get the book and read the
Yeah.
book. So how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. So if you're interested in the book, The Money Conversation, you can go to the moneyconversation.net. If you're interested in the perfect pricing formula, visit me at my website, Some Solutions, SUMSOLUTIONS.com.
Amazing. And we will put all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us here today and for helping us know that we're probably pricing ourselves a little bit too low. So let this conversation spur you to at least calculate what your floor is and raise your prices. Ladies, thank you so much for spending time with us here on the She Leads podcast, Linda.
Thank you. I enjoyed the great conversation. Thank you.
If this conversation moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently, please take a moment to leave a 5-star rating and review. It's not just about boosting the show, it's about amplifying the voices of women entrepreneurs who are leading with vision, building with purpose, and shaping what's next. We need more of these conversations in the world right now, don't you think? And if someone came to mind while you were listening, someone who matters to you, send this episode to them. If there's something on your mind about leadership, legacy, or what's next, I want to hear it. Head to sheleadsmedia.com/voice and leave a voice memo or note. Your insight might just help shape a future episode. Make sure to follow the show and come back next week for more conversations you won't hear anywhere else. Thank you so much for listening. This is the She Leads Podcast Network. This is the She Leads Podcast Network.